about to start. Let some people get in here before we start everything. We got 7 SEC games. All these SEC games are between. I think they're all divisional games. If I'm not, we have we have 2 cross divisional games this week. Ole Miss, Vandy, and Tennessee. My bad. We have 3. Tennessee, LSU. Obviously, that's the biggest game of the week here in the SEC. And honestly, this might be the best game of the week. We'll talk about that later. Georgia, Auburn, and then Ole Miss, Vanderbilt. So there you go. Anyway, guys, let's just get straight into this. Welcome to the Week 6 predictions. Last week I couldn't make it for a live stream, unfortunately. Boy, I'll tell you this much: you would have made a lot of money if you would bet against my spread last week. I'll tell you that. I think I went like 7-3 or something like that. Of course, can't show that off because I wasn't here. But for the past couple of weeks, I'm combined 12, 9, and 1 or something like that. We'll talk about Alabama here in about 15, 20 minutes. We'll get to some of these first games. So Week 6 is here. How about my first game to talk about today? This game, I think, is a noon game on SEC Network, if I'm not mistaken. Florida and Missouri. Missouri comes in as a road underdog, of course. Missouri, shout out to Missouri. They played really, really well last week against Georgia. Honestly, could have won the game. If Missouri makes more offensive plays, especially across the 30-yard line, Missouri could have ended up actually winning this game. Held Georgia to 26 points, was able to score 22. The problem with Missouri was, and you got to give Georgia's defense credit for this, though, but it was the fact that they couldn't get touchdowns. They got 1 touchdown the entire way, 5 field goals. They went 5 for 5 from field goals, and 3 of those 5 field goals were from 45 plus, and 1 was almost 60. So, that one was that was an insane game, to be honest. Not a lot of people expected, including me, expected Georgia to struggle like that. I took Georgia in the points. I'm not even going to lie. I expected Georgia to bounce back, and they haven't looked the same since week 3. Anyway, Missouri's defense has been playing a lot better these past couple of weeks, really since the Kansas State game. They got absolutely destroyed by Kansas State, but the problem was they turned the ball over a lot and couldn't do anything offensively in that game. Kansas State was able to put up 40. They got over 200 yards rushing, I believe. That's really about it. I think they only had like 350 yards of offense. So Missouri's defense really didn't play that bad. Offensively, just couldn't do anything. But Florida, on the other hand, one of the best rush offenses in the nation, top 20 right now in rushing yards per game. I think they're sitting around 220 yards. 210, 220, something like that, yards per game, which is really, really, really good. The SEC has a lot of really good rush teams. Ole Miss, Kentucky, Florida, Tennessee. Tennessee, surprisingly, almost 200 yards rushing a game. Alabama's pretty good. Georgia's rush offense is starting to look better, except for pretty much last week. They're starting to get more yards. But this should be an interesting game. I'm definitely taking Florida in this game. And oh, by the way, this is my best play of the week. I'm taking Florida in the 10.5. I don't think this might be a terrible bet, but I don't really think Missouri is all that good. I'm just being real. I told you that after the Georgia game. Missouri's just not good. Let's be real here. Their offense is really, really bad. It's bottom tier in the SEC in total yards. They're around, I think, 10th or 11th in the SEC. And scoring offense, they've been struggling to score these past couple of games. They really should have beaten Auburn, if we're being honest. Found a way to lose to UGA. Their front 7 held up really well, and this was one of the worst rush defensive teams in the country last year. There was a point in time in which, I think it was week 7, Missouri was giving up over 350 yards rushing or some crazy stat like that. They finished the year in the hundreds. In rush defense, giving up over 220, ridiculous number. This year, they corrected that a bit, their defense, and I expected their secondary to be relatively solid for the season. But their defense has been much better. It's just their offense. I think Florida I really think Anthony Richardson is just going to be too much for for the Tigers here. I went ahead and took Florida 35-13. That might be a big margin, but I'm telling you, Missouri is one of the worst teams in the SEC. And the fact that they competed with Georgia is really frightening for UGA, and I'm a big UGA fan. So just saying that. But I'm going to take Florida. I'm going to take this rush offense. It's really, really, really hard to stop Florida's rush offense. They were able to get a lot of yards on Tennessee. Tennessee, by the way, only giving up 98 yards rushing per game, just saying. A big part of that was because of the Florida game. I think they gave up like 200 or something close to that yards in that game. Anthony Richardson will beat you through the ground. P. Ryan. Wow. Yeah, P. Ryan. He's still at Florida. No, but ETN, I really like that true freshman, Trevor Etienne. I don't know why I said P. Ryan. And all these other backs, Markel Johnson's having a good year. I mean, this offense is going to beat you every which way possible through the ground. And offensively for Missouri, the Cook had a solid game last week. Cooper played, the wide receiver. Cooper played well. A couple of other wide receivers played well. Missouri's offensive and defensive line probably played their best game of their life against UGA. Just wasn't enough. I'm going to take Florida in the points, and I'm going to take them to win by 22 points at home in a noon game. The next game I have Ole Miss and Vanderbilt. I think Ole Miss is the home team, right? Or do they have to travel to Vandy? Give me 1 second on that. This is a 3:34 p.m. kickoff, I believe. This is also on SEC Network. I'm sorry. The Missouri-Florida game's on ESPNU. That's on me. But anyway, yeah, it's a 4 p.m. This is at Vandy in Nashville, Tennessee. Vanderbilt, much better than what people thought. They got to 3 wins. Shout out to Vandy. I thought they would get around 3-4 wins this year. Well, they're already at 3 wins this season. And, well, they got absolutely destroyed by Alabama. Okay. They had a bye week, right? Didn't they have a bye week last week? Yeah, before this game. Ole Miss comes in only as a 17-point favorite. This is kind of like a head scratcher. I don't know. The line is, again, it's Vandy. You're spotting points for Vandy. My only guess is the line is this low is simply because of how big of a win Ole Miss had last week. And oh, by the way, Kentucky plus 6.5 was supposed to be my play of the week. I would have actually got that. I actually picked Kentucky to win outright. And let's be real here, Kentucky should have won. Ole Miss did enough, obviously, defensively, to win this game. Really, after the second quarter, Ole Miss couldn't do anything offensively. Did they even score? Yeah, they scored a field goal, right? The final was 22-19. It was a lower scoring game. And, well, Kentucky's a really good team. We'll talk about them soon. They got a big game against South Carolina. But Vanderbilt made a change at QB. Swain is now the QB. He's a true freshman. Isn't really having, a great year. Vandy is just a team that is going to be pretty much outmatched based off of talent and roster every week now. Like I said, I think Vandy's going to get somebody. I don't think it's going to be Ole Miss. Let me just put down my score prediction right now. Ole Miss is just, way more athletic. They're better. Obviously, they have way more talent. I got Ole Miss covering that 17. I almost made this my play of the week. In fact, maybe I should have, because there are lines on this game that are 16.5. 17 is low as well. But it could be a hangover game after what we saw against Kentucky. So, but this rush offense, I think, is actually the best in the SEC, and it's not by much, but it is probably the best in the SEC. I think they're top 5 in the country right now, which obviously is really, really, really good. But let's talk about that Kentucky game. Actually, Ole Miss's defense as a whole is just really, really good. Their defense giving up less than 20 points per game. Like I said, ever since that Auburn game from last year, this Ole Miss defense has been stepping up all year. So in fact, I don't think they've given up more than 21 points in the past year, really, dating back to around this time. Last time, no, they gave up 31 to Auburn, so 11 months ago. But anyway, since that Auburn game, they have not given up 21 points. We're into another year, and they're, by the way, without DJ Durkin, who's now at Texas A&M, who's doing a pretty solid job, I would say. But now this defense is pretty much back where they left off from last year. They are a pretty athletic defense, for being honest with you. I just think Vandy will be outmatched. I expect a lot of rushing yards from Zach Evans and Judkins. Nothing really spectacular to say on this game. I don't think it's not going to be the most watched, obviously. I don't think it'll be even that close. So let's talk about my dogs. My dogs go back home after an embarrassing road win. Yes, Georgia won. So, they're 5-0. They fell to only number 2. I was actually surprised about that. I thought Georgia should have fallen below Ohio State. But now you are a 30-point home favorite against Auburn. Has Georgia looked like they've been better than 30 points against anybody in the past 2 weeks? No. Again, it really depends on which Georgia team shows up. Is it going to be the team that we think they are, which is one of the best teams in the country, if not the best, where Stetson Bennett is making he's making great plays. Brock Bowers is making elite plays. Of course, A.D. Mitchell has been out. Jalen Carter has been out. Jalen Carter has been hit by the injury bug pretty much all year, which has been huge because he's by far the best defensive lineman that Georgia has. It's not even close. But yeah, Auburn offensively is just not that good. I'm just being real here. Ashford he gave everything he could last week against LSU. In fact, Auburn should have won that game. The problem is the play calling in the red zone made no sense where they had, Coy Moore, I think, threw that terrible interception on that wide receiver jet sweep pass play. It made no sense. You're in the red zone, man, with one of the fastest quarterbacks on planet Earth and with one of the best running backs in the country in Tank Bigsby. No, first down and 10 at the 11. You run that, try to get cute. It was terrible. But Auburn's defense has been pretty good for the majority of the year. Georgia offensively, once they get inside the 25, it's just they don't execute. And that's why they haven't been scoring touchdowns like against Kent State, like against Sanford, and like against Missouri. 4 field goals in Missouri game. Kent State, Georgia had, 4 field goals again. And then the Sanford game, guess what? Georgia had, 4 field goals? You can't just get down to the red zone and kick field goals. Now, Georgia, top 5 in the nation in yards per game. They're getting over 500. Their passing offense and passing efficiency is one of the best in the country, believe it or not. I mean, a lot of people would know. I'm going to take Auburn in the points. I think Georgia wins this game pretty comfortably. I really, really, really want to see the Georgia team where Stetson Bennett, like I said, is making great decisions, especially inside the 25, and Georgia scoring touchdowns. This offensive line got completely embarrassed last week, and the defensive line as well, for the most part. Again, like Kent State, Georgia gave up under 300 yards of total offense defensively. So their defense is playing fine. It's these ticky-tack turnovers that are making no sense. Stetson Bennett just literally dropped the ball. It's a read option. You either give it or you don't. No, instead he just drops it on the ground. Don't know about that. And then Kendall Milton fumbles after a really, 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 really good run. Probably the best run that we've had all year from a running back, to say the least. Now, Brock Bowers is insane. He's one of the 5 best players in college football. The problem is he doesn't get the ball enough, so he won't be a Heisman candidate. But I got UGA winning this game pretty comfortably. I really want to take Georgia in 29.5 or 30. I'm going to go with Auburn in the points here. 30 is a lot to lay. This is a rivalry game. I'm going to stay away from this. Georgia's team I'm staying away from if I'm betting for the rest of the season. And I'm not even kidding on that. But anyway, how about one of these games? Kentucky versus South Carolina. Now we got a really good rush offense versus one of the worst rush defenses. South Carolina giving up over, 180 yards rushing game, 190, something like that. That's incredibly bad. The worst rush defense in the SEC. And Kentucky, I think, is top 20 in the nation in rush offense. So on paper, Kentucky's going to win this game by multiple scores. Like Ole Miss, that was a really, really, really good game. An emotional win for Ole Miss. It's an emotional loss for Kentucky. Kentucky was the better team on last Saturday. Yes, they didn't get as many yards as Ole Miss, but they missed a field goal, missed 2 extra points, got down in the red zone twice. And did nothing with it. Kentucky really shot themselves in the foot and should have won that game. They're only a 6-point favorite against South Carolina. If you've been looking at this recent history between these two, this game's usually always close, no matter how bad or good either team is. I think Will Levis, clearly a better QB than Spencer Rattler. Spencer Rattler has been struggling. South Carolina's offensive line has been pretty bad this year. Is it the worst in the SEC? Maybe. It might be. It might be the worst in the SEC. And that's even including, obviously, Vanderbilt. Who else? Auburn's is really bad. LSU's, has been playing a little bit better, just not great. But anyway. But yeah, Will Levis should have a good game. Rodriguez should have a good game. Smoke. It's simply based on paper of how bad South Carolina's rush defense is. I'm going to take Kentucky to win this one by 2 scores. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. This is another I don't know if this is so much of a trap game other than the fact that Kentucky plays almost every team close, it seems. Didn't they? I think it was against NIU. They almost lost, right? Well, no, they didn't almost lose, but they were up majority of the game. Ends up winning by just 8. I think it's going to be something similar to that, except for I'm not trusting Spencer Rattler enough to win, to get his enough points, really. And South Carolina's defense, like I've said in multiple streams and even the Georgia stream, they are much worse than last year, way worse. They're giving up 20-something points per game. That's not as bad when you think about it, but they're giving up a lot of yards on the ground. They're giving up more yards than last year. Almost gave up 50 points to Arkansas, gave up 50 points to Georgia. No, they're giving up about 30-something a game. But anyway, Alabama and Texas A&M. Oh, boy, the battle of the backup quarterbacks is what I'm hearing. Unfortunately for Texas A&M, Max Johnson will not be able to suit up. Chase Lane was out last week. That was I never heard that he was injured. Apparently he was out last week. I don't know why he needs to be back for this game because Texas A&M really doesn't have any other wide receivers. He's wide receiver 1, Evan Stewart on the opposite side. And then guess what? Who's that new slot wide receiver for Texas A&M? Anaya Smith, of course, goes down with the injury. You hate seeing that. He was the second best player on the team, or on the offensive side at least. And, of course, he goes down. Now, Devon Achane has been playing out of his mind, especially the past couple of weeks. I mean, if you give him any sort of space, he's going to beat you. If he's even, he's leaving. Unfortunately for Texas A&M, now you got the rest of the season more than likely with Haynes King. I hear people want Jimbo Fisher to throw in Connor Wegman. How can you do that to a guy, an 18-year-old that hasn't played a single snap for Texas A&M all year? And although he had a pretty solid, he looked like the best quarterback in my opinion in the spring game. You can't just throw him out against this elite defense in Alabama on the road in a night game. CBS does it again. They take the Texas A&M game as their game of the year. Yes, CBS gets one night game per year. That's usually their game of the season, right? And they chose Texas A&M, Alabama. A lot of people are upset about that. I don't really know what else to say. This game had a lot of hype leading up to it in the offseason. Not so much now because A&M, of course, A&M is A&M, and they lose to App State, and Mississippi State got absolutely destroyed last week. But Max Johnson going down really hurt Texas. It really hurts Texas A&M for the rest of the year. They'll be lucky to get to 8-4 at this rate. But last year, one of the biggest fluke wins I think I've ever seen in my life. I'm not even kidding. Texas A&M was a 19, 20-point home underdog. It was, like I said, it was a night game, and they started out the game really hot and had a lot of plays go their way. Almost everything went Texas A&M's way in the first 3 quarters. Then the fourth quarter comes around. Alabama does what Alabama does. They go down. They get a touchdown. They take the lead. But then Zach Calzada, give him a lot of credit. Again, that was the best game I think I've ever seen. Obviously, I've ever seen from him. But that was the biggest fluke win I've ever seen. Because Zach Calzada obviously was never able to repeat that. And Texas A&M only rushed for 90 yards. 90. It's not like they were grounding and pounding all game. And they only they did throw for 300, I believe, right? Like 320. But A&M could not move the ball in the second half, period. In fact, they had no first down until the fourth quarter, believe it or not. But anyway, ended up winning that game. Biggest fluke win I've seen in a long time. It's going to take something like that for them to win. Alabama's now a 23.5-point favorite. I think didn't it start at like 17 when Max Johnson, when people thought Max Johnson was going to play? No, it's not. And oh, by the way, Alabama has quarterback issues. I don't think Bryce Young will be playing in this game. An AC joint injury is is much worse than what people think. I had it in this shoulder right here. And I'll tell you this much. Some days I couldn't even lift my arm above my head. So, but I'm hearing that he's day-to-day. A lot of people saying he's just watching practice. I doubt he's playing in this game. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. I think it's going to be Monroe. He's more of a rush quarterback anyway. What is Texas A&M's biggest weakness so far? It's been the rush defense. They're one of the worst rush defenses in the nation. If they tighten up and make Monroe beat him through the air, A&M's got a good shot, especially how good these DBs are. I mean, Texas A&M has one of the best defensive backcourts in the nation. Antonio Johnson, obviously a nickel. They put him in safety as well. They use him pretty much all over the field. He's clearly going to be a first-round pick. Damani Richardson, the most important player on that defense, really, because of his IQ, and he makes a lot of plays at strong side safety. Who else you got here? Drawing blank. Miles Jones, he's backup. Jalen Jones, starting corner for Texas A&M. Can they compete with these wide receivers? I think so. Alabama's not going to wow you with their wide receiver play. They at least haven't wowed me like I thought they would come in this year. Jermaine Burton really hasn't been so much of a factor. But I really don't think Texas A&M has a shot in this game. I'm taking Alabama in the points. I did this last year, and boy, was I way wrong. I'm always incredibly wrong with this game. Take it back to 2017. Alabama went into Aggie Land, and they were a huge road favorite. They were like a 20-something. No, I mean, they weren't. They were like an 18-point favorite. I'm like, dang, that's a low line. A&M, there's no way A&M can cover 18 against Alabama. Well, A&M covers the 18 and only loses by 8. The next year, Alabama was like a 20-something point favorite. Well, I'm like, Texas A&M's not that bad. There's no way they're giving up more than 20-something points, and losing this game. So I'm completely wrong about this every single year. I honestly hope I'm wrong this year because I want a good game out of these two, but I'm really confident. It doesn't matter who Alabama puts in at quarterback. It's mainly because I don't trust Haynes King at all. One of the biggest disappointments at quarterback in probably A&M history. He might be the most, I hate to say it, he might be the most disappointing with how high he was highly recruited, borderline 5-star recruit. he doesn't. I mean, he looks nothing close to that. I really like Alabama in the points here. It's gonna, like I said, it's gonna take a miracle for Texas A&M to win this game. It might even take a miracle it might even take a miracle for Texas A&M to even lose by 10 points in this game. If they can somehow force Bama to field goals, like Texas was doing or trying to do against Alabama, especially in the red zone, because Bama's going to get yards. Maybe they'll have a shot. Maybe, just maybe. It's just they have a lot of talent offensively and defensively. Offensively, we just don't. I mean, this is the worst offense in the SEC statistically, worse than Vanderbilt. In fact, Texas A&M's offense is so bad they only average 3 more yards per game than Rutgers. Texas A&M, I think, is 106th in the country. Like I said, dead last in the SEC, and it's not even close. It's by like 30-something yards. Points per game, only averaging about 20-something a game. Defensively, their defense is a strong suit, only giving up like 16 a game. Last week, Mississippi State had a what was it? A pick six and a blocked field goal for a touchdown. Other than that, Texas A&M's defense was doing everything they could against a pretty good Mississippi State offense, but it's gonna be a real tough struggle for Texas A&M to even score in this game. I spotted them 7 points. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 34-0. Or like 40. I don't know if Bama will score 40 on them, especially if Bryce Young isn't playing. I'm going to act like Bryce Young isn't going to play in this game, to be honest with you. To me, it's kind of tough to throw him out there with that shoulder injury. Anyway, moving on, Mississippi State and Arkansas. This game comes on, of course, noon on the SEC network. This is a weird line, in my opinion. Mississippi State -9. Over-under is set at 57.5. Believe it or not, I'm taking the under in this game. This is one of the weirdest rivalries, I guess you can call it. I'm pretty sure it is a rivalry. But it's one of the weirder matchups every single season, especially with Mike Leach now. Underwhelmed. But this game is always really, really close. 9 points is a lot to lay. I ended up taking Mississippi State 27-24. I'm taking Arkansas on those 9 points. In fact, it might even go up to 10. If it goes up to 10, I would definitely bet that. Arkansas has a good chance at winning this game, especially with how it depends on KJ Jefferson, though. If he's healthy enough to play, I would put $100 on it right now that he's playing. But one of the hardest rush offenses to stop, Alabama could even slow this rush offense down, especially in the third quarter. I think they gave up like 200-something yards, and Alabama never give up 200 yards rushing. That tells you how good Arkansas's rush offense is. I think it's number 2 in the SEC behind Ole Miss. Rocket Sanders is honestly the most underrated running back in the country. I don't even think it's close. He's averaging like 130 yards of total offense per game, around 1.5, 2 touchdowns per game. By far one of the most exciting players to watch in the SEC, and easily the most underrated running back, at least in my opinion. I think Mississippi State's going to win. I wouldn't be surprised if this goes either way. This is going to be a good game. 9 points is a lot to lay, like I said. I like Arkansas to cover. I will take Mississippi State to win outright. Will Rogers is having a really good year, but this defense for Mississippi State has been stepping up, to say the least. Rocket Sanders had over 100 yards rushing against Alabama, and I think he had a couple catches. A couple catches. So, averaging over 130 yards of total offense per game. How about that? And now the game of the week, LSU and Tennessee. Both these rush offenses, like I said, give credit to Josh Heupel, because Tennessee is averaging the most yards per game in the country. They're number 1 in the nation in yards per game. Part of the reason is their rush offense has actually been much more improved this season. Hendon Hooker has been making a lot of really good plays. A dark horse for the Heisman, I would say. Does he really have a shot? Well, if Tennessee is able to run the table, maybe just maybe upset either Georgia or Alabama. If I'm a Tennessee fan, I don't know who you'd rather beat. Maybe Georgia, because that's in the cross divisional. And you would have head to head, and Georgia probably wouldn't lose another game, being honest with you. But Tennessee, like I said earlier, Tennessee's defense has been really, really, really good. Much more improved this year. Yes, they gave up a lot of yards to Florida, but they got a bye this past week, which was huge. We saw LSU struggle. I mean, LSU really should not have beaten Auburn. Jaden Daniels. Wow, I can't speak apparently. Jaden Daniels had less than 100 yards passing in this game. He had, I don't even know how many rushing yards he had. The rush offense was honestly the saving grace for LSU. That's really it. They got lucky to win that game. So the play calling in the red zone for Auburn made zero sense, to say the least. But Hendon Hooker's clearly better than Jaden Daniels. But Jaden Daniels isn't a pushover. He's a solid SEC starting quarterback. Who do I think is going to win this game? This is on the road in Baton Rouge. Guess what? Another 12 o'clock noon game. I went with Tennessee. And by the way, Tennessee's a 2-point favorite. I think simply because Tennessee had a bye, they get one extra week to prepare, and they didn't have to play after an emotional home win against Florida. That was a huge program booster win for Tennessee. They're sitting. They watched. They have an extra week to prepare. They watched LSU struggle. They saw on the offensive line and through really the passing game for LSU is not their strength, to say the least. But like I said, Tennessee's defense has been stepping up so far this year. Only give up 19 a game. Yes, I get it. They gave up 33 points and like 500 yards to Florida. But what saved them against Pitt really was their second half defense. I mean, they completely dominated the second half, and they should have won this game by more than just 7. And this game should not have gone to overtime, to say the least. But I'm going to take Tennessee and Hendon Hooker. Is Tillman playing in this game? I don't think so. It would be a huge lifter if he is. I'm hearing that is he a game time decision? I don't remember. But I'm taking Tennessee outright to win this game, even to cover the 2 points. This is a pick'em game for you. A lot of people are riding LSU simply because it is in Baton Rouge. By the way, LSU's home field advantage, one of the best in the nation, period. But I really like the feel of this Tennessee offense and this team as a whole. So let me see what you guys think. This is what I was thinking as well. A lot of people are taking Tennessee, but I think the fan vote has LSU. I think the fan vote has LSU. I don't remember that though, but Woo Pig, yeah. We have Cade Fortin and Malik Hornsby, which is the fastest player on the team. Yeah, I know Malik Hornsby, a really, really, really good runner. Not sure if he can do it through the air. And if you're going to play Mississippi State, you're going to have to play more balanced, play better offensively than Texas A&M did, obviously. Arkansas will beat Mississippi State. We have made changes in the secondary, so it will be a whole different Arkansas team, and we lead the SEC in sacks. Yes, you do. But you also lead, you also are bottom in passing yards in the SEC. You give up the most passing yards per game, and you give up about 30-something points per game, which is bottom half in the SEC, obviously. I think it's 12th. You give up just a little bit less than Vandy. Who's the other team? It might just be Vanderbilt. But anyway, A&M is not good. Nick is going to run up the score. I don't really think the offseason thing should really have any factor on this game. It might. We'll see. He has a mild shoulder sprain. It's minor. It's an AC joint, though. I had one. They can shoot. Yeah, you're right. They give you a shot. It's like a sterilizer. I think I really wanted to get it in mine. I never was able to get it because I moved. But they give you 3 shots, one like right here, one there, and I don't know where the other one would go. I just know that they would give them 3 sterilizers. But anyway, won't matter. A&M is going to have several several key players out. Well, yeah, let me see who they got out for this game. I know, obviously, Anaya Smith, Max Johnson. It's really mainly on the offensive side, if we're being real. Who else? Max Johnson, Anaya Smith, somebody on the defensive line. I can look it up, though. A&M always has injury. Every team always has injury, so that's really no excuse, especially with their roster. There should be no excuse on why they can't, at least compete in this game. I'm sorry. With this roster talent, I know Alabama's really, really, really good, but there's no excuse to lose this game by 30 points. And this is what I'm predicting, a 34-7 loss for Texas A&M. Foster's playing. When they added Bryce Foster back to the lineup for Texas A&M, their offensive line played a little bit better. Is playing a little bit better. Musa Muhammad had a pretty good week last week, but they need more. Consistency at wide receiver play, especially quarterback play. Oh my goodness. Let's see. I'm looking. Maybe throw out. Honestly, maybe you have to throw out Connor Wayman. I don't know what else there is to say for Texas A&M at this point. Let's see. Am I missing anybody? I'll be so upset. Bryce Foster is going to play. I don't know why. Blake Smith, Max Wright. Anyway, I thought Bryce Foster is playing. Yeah, he is playing. I don't get it. Anyway, so looks like they're out with a couple tight ends that really haven't done anything all year. Let's just be real. I said that the secondary will look different with changes we made, and we have a balanced attack. Cade Fulton is a good 4-star QB. Well, guess what? You haven't seen him play at all. You can't just rely off a freshman. High school tape to determine how good he's going to be against Mississippi State. I'm just being real. But I'm pretty sure KJ Jefferson's playing. If A&M disappoints again next year, do you think Jimbo's gone? Yeah. I don't think they can fire him this year. His buyout is like $95 million. Next year, it goes down to 70-something. That is insane, man. So it looks like he's their coach for a while. Texas A&M, he just needs to go out and hire a real offensive coordinator. I don't understand it. I really don't. 2020, yeah, they had a good offense. 2018, yeah, they had a good offense. 2019, they had one of the worst offenses in the SEC. It went 7-5. 2021, one of the worst offenses in the SEC. They go 8-4, right? This year, one of the worst offense, actually the worst offense in the SEC. They're about to be 3-3. You get a bye week. That's the key. Forget about this game against Alabama. I don't think there's any way they're winning this game. I really hope I jinx it. I do, because I want to see Texas A&M compete at least for this game. But Haynes King has looked absolutely terrible, and their offensive line hasn't been any better. Devon Achane's literally the only bright spot for Texas A&M's offense. Evan Stewart had a couple drops last week too. He's a true freshman. He's going to be really, really, really good, though. Chris Marshall as well. I think he's going to be really good. But these are freshmen, guys. Achane, he's a junior. I mean, he might test the waters. Donovan Green, another really good high school recruit, or actually underrated, if we're being honest. For Texas A&M, tight end, guess what? He's a freshman. You look at their defensive line, Shamar Turner, obviously last year 5-star recruit. Sophomore, Walker Nolan, freshman, 5-star recruit. What else do we have here? Shamar Stewart, freshman, 5-star recruit. Tamais Odeleye, they stole from Oklahoma. Redshirt freshman, again, another 5-star recruit. So that's on their defensive line. Tyreek Chappelle, he's only a sophomore, but he's playing pretty well. Deuce Harmon, another highly rated 4-star recruit for Texas A&M, sophomore. Antonio Johnson, he'll be gone. But this defense, this secondary is really, really, really good, and they are pretty deep at they are too deep at every position defensively, at least at cornerback and safety. So I'm talking about DBs. Well, after this game, the schedule gets much, I'm not going to say easier, but manageable. They play Ole Miss at home. Auburn, they go on the road against Auburn. Auburn is really not that good. Depending on how bad Auburn loses this week, could this be the last week of Brian Harsin? Perhaps. I don't know. He's playing for his job. That would be a huge upset loss for Texas A&M. Who else they got to play? Obviously, LSU at the end of the year. That won't be easy. They got a group of 5 team that they play who's not that good. I don't even remember who they play. And then South Carolina, too, right after the bye week. So it's more manageable. It's more manageable for Texas A&M. They could definitely get to 8-4 after this loss, but will they? I don't know. This offense is really, really, really bad. It took an all-time miracle for them to beat Alabama last year. In fact, they only scored 40 points last year twice, and the one time was against Alabama. One of the 2 was against Alabama. They did score 41 against Kent State, and they also scored 50 against an FCS team. But does that really count? I'm sorry. I mean, I'm just being real. The offense is really, really, really bad. I can see Arkansas winning out if you guys tighten up defensively, maybe. But your defense is one of the worst in the SEC. You're giving up the most passing yards per game. I already said that. I understand that you've tightened up you changed up your defense a bit. It doesn't matter. I mean, you're still giving up how many yards per game? You're going to give up over 300-something yards passing to Mississippi State. I'd be absolutely surprised and shocked if you somehow, some way hold Will Rogers under 250 yards passing. If you do that, you would definitely win this game. But with how bad your defense has been, it's going to be tough for Arkansas to win out because you still have to play LSU, who's a really good defensive team. Who else? LSU, Ole Miss. You already played A&M, Bama. You're playing obviously Mississippi State. Who's your cross-divisional foe this year? It's not Tennessee. Oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank. You already played South Carolina, so you do play Missouri. Missouri's terrible. You'll win that. You play BYU next week, correct, on the road. That will not be easy at all, especially how good their quarterback is. So BYU, Mississippi State, BYU. Isn't it Ole Miss? I think. And then FCS team. No, I'm sorry, a group of 5 team. Whatever your schedule is, I'm drawing a blank on it. You still play Auburn. That's definitely a winnable game. In fact, you're definitely going to be favored in that game. You could potentially be favored by double digits, and you probably will be. You probably should be, honestly. I think Arkansas is a good team. Problem is you had to play Texas A&M, Bama, and then Mississippi State back to back. One in a neutral siting game, one at home. Of course, you get Bama at home, but and then you have to go on the road against Mississippi State, who looks like one of the best teams in the SEC right now. In my opinion, they're definitely a top 20 team. I would have even had them ranked after even before the Texas A&M game. But Arkansas, it's gonna take a lot defensively for you to win out, in my opinion. But anyway, anything else you guys want to cover for this live stream? I already talked about pretty much. I talked a lot about Texas A&M. It won't matter. Oh, all right. Roll Tide. Yeah, I got Bama big. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. What are you guys saying with my score predictions? How about my spread predictions out of the 7? What do you like the most? Florida minus 10.5 is the play of the week. I almost took Ole Miss. In fact, maybe I should have took Ole Miss. Dang. But we'll see. If UGA, or more specifically Stetson, struggles versus Auburn like they did, do you think Oregon game was a fluke? I don't think the Oregon game was a fluke. But Stetson really, if we're being honest, He struggled a bit against Kent State and a bit of the most of the first half against Missouri until the last drive. But the second half, he played well. And most of the entire year that he's played well, he's only has like 2 turnovers? No, he has an interception, a fumble. Yeah, he only has 2 turnovers this year. Give him some credit. I don't think you could call that a fluke simply because Georgia has another game against South Carolina. They did dang near the same thing, you know. But I hope Georgia shows up this week against Auburn. I'm taking Auburn in the points. But hey, what's your 2 locks? Mine are TCU to cover and Georgia won't. I want to take Ole Miss in 17. I don't know. Ole Miss, the problem is with Ole Miss is their second half offense is terrible. I don't understand this. They're actually dead last in scoring offense in the second half in the SEC. Like what? They've only scored like 2 touchdowns in the second half. Man, I mean, dude, they're playing at Vanderbilt, by the way, Kobe. Vanderbilt is terrible, but in order for them to cover 17 and me be comfortable, I'm going to have to see them being up 38-0 at half because they're going to give up points and they're going to struggle in the second half. They did it against Troy. They did it against who they play after Troy. Was it Georgia Tech? No way. I'm forgetting who they played after Troy. Against Georgia Tech, hey, guess what? They scored 2 touchdowns in the second half. That's the most that they've scored all year. And then they turn around against Tulsa and scored 0 points in the second half. Last week, they scored 3 in the second half. So, but hey, even worse than Auburn's second half offense. That's actually impressive. Auburn and Ole Miss are pretty even in the second half. Like I said, Ole Miss has scored, I think, just 3 touchdowns all year in the second half. I don't know about Auburn. In fact, Auburn might be worse. Now, come to think of it, it's pretty close, but both teams are terrible in the second half. But hey, Lane will get it done. I hope so. I hope he covers that because I wanted to take that as my lock, but right now my lock is Florida. Oh, I might regret doing that. But other than the SEC, I like Northwestern in 10 against Wisconsin. What else is there? That was the main one I was focusing on for the Big Ten when I did the Big Ten. I don't know if I like TCU in 7.5 against Kansas. I think that game will be close, especially with that being hosting game day. I don't know. You could have that one. I'm not going to take that because I'll stay away from that game and betting. Northwestern plus 10. I did my SEC one. I took 10.5 for Florida. That might have been a terrible idea, to say the least. I would have to look elsewhere. The Big 12, I think Texas in 9.5 is a kind of high because it's a rivalry game. But hey, thank you, Kobe, for watching, and I'm going to get out of here too. Thank you guys for watching. Georgia fans, I'll see you after the Auburn game tomorrow. The game should end around 7 p.m. Eastern time, I believe, or maybe 6:30, something like that. But I'll see you guys later. Thank you guys for watching. Leave a like and comment. And if you're new, subscribe to all the channels here on the SEC football at the Voice of College Football, the Georgia football at the Voice of College Football, LSU football at the Voice of College Football, Florida football at the Voice of College Football, Alabama Alabama football at the Voice of College Football, and Texas A&M football at the Voice of College Football. Make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe if you're new, and leave comments. Give me your score predictions down below. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys tomorrow if you're a Georgia fan.